What's up guys, Austin with Overkill. Today I'm going to show you how to replace the collector manifold on your P40. Whether you're going through a cold freeze or you're off the trigger too long, metering valves were closed when it got started up, depending on what your scenario is, I'm going to walk you through how to replace this very easily.
Alright guys, I don't want to drag this out and make it a whole thing, but I did want to input this. We had 3 calls that came in last week about P40s blowing in the same exact spot above the inlet tube with the new manifolds on them that are supposed to be, you know, equalized pressure, the whole 9 yards, supposed to be, you know, greatest gift on earth, blah blah blah. We reached out to Comet directly to try and see if this was anything they were going to warranty, just based on the freak nature of where it was cracking and it being in the same exact spot. They stood firm on any cooler weather that they're not warranting any of it. I've also included this screenshot here from somebody that I reached out to. This is a direct email chain that basically says, you know, it's in the warranty info. You're supposed to run antifreeze through it, not run it through cold weather, blah, blah, blah. So just be very careful when you're using these machines, especially if you're new to the industry. Try and, you know, do as much research as you can on this equipment before just jumping into it, because if there are some crucial things that you just cannot do, otherwise they're going to break. With all of our new customers, especially guys that are getting into the industry, we do training on site whenever they pick up the trailers. We run them through all the equipment and everything, but there are a couple things that you just cannot do, which is you can't start this thing with the valves closed or the trigger not pulled, you know, not at full throttle starting up. You have to let the pressure out after you're done, and you can't crank this thing up to full throttle. Crank the regulator down to get as much pressure as possible. Stuff's gonna break. This is plastic. It was never meant to be used for what we're using it for, and it's just making it work essentially. So what you guys do have to remember is these are just pest control pumps at the end of the day that they are trying to make a little bit better for our uses, but this is where they stand. They're gonna tell you to get bent, so you guys just have to keep that in mind when it comes to running these systems. Is set some money aside for repairs, because it could happen day one, it could happen a year from now. So I just wanted to jump on and give this a little bit of info so you guys had an idea of what to expect.
Here are some things you're going to need in order to make this work. First thing, you're going to need some torque specs with your diagram. So you see I have torque specs over here, a breakdown on what the parts are for the P40. So fortunately I'll have this information to go over with you. You're also going to need a 1/2 inch socket, a torque wrench, and then a number 6 Allen. All right, let's get started. So first thing we're gonna do, clear our workspace. We're gonna move our bypass, your suction lines. You do wanna make sure all the pressure's out of your pump. We already did that. We're gonna go through and we're gonna remove the unloader. And we're just gonna crack these loose. And we'll set this aside. All right, now that we have our bypass removed, we're gonna go through and we're gonna zip off all of these bolts that are on this collector piece. So now that we have these first 4 bolts off, I'm going to show you here. So they are different lengths. So you want to make sure that this long one stays in that area. These short ones right here stay in between the center. And then your other long one, same size there as you can see, stay on the outside. So your long ones go here and your shorter ones go here. So as you start loosening these bolts, you'll see that this collector is going to start working its way from the pump. And then all you need to do is just make sure that all your bolts are loose. So now that the collector is off, you'll see one of our seats came out. So we're going to set this aside just so we know our bolts are all in the same area, and then we'll move on to the next step. I'm just going to apply a little bit of grease around these O-rings just to make sure that everything seats properly and that it seals it. This is not 1000% necessary, but as you know, here we don't do things half-assed, so I'm going to make sure that this is 1000% good to go. All right, so we're going to open this box. Part number is 10002-14670 kit. This is the retrofit kit. This is the same kit that you would use to basically put this collector on an old style pump. As you can see, it comes with the foot, comes with a new bypass assembly, and then the collector plate. I am going to apply a little bit more grease on these fittings just to make sure everything's good, and then I'll show you how to install it. So we've got the bolts transferred over from that collector to the new one here. Double check to make sure that all the small ones are in the middle, your longer ones are on the outside, as you can see. What you're going to do for install is basically just kind of align this very, very carefully. Just kind of wiggle it a little bit just to get it in place. And then you want to hand thread these in a couple threads so it seats very carefully. You do not want to immediately go to a power tool to try and zip these in. You're gonna have a terrible day. Do a similar pattern like we would a star on a vehicle. Kind of starting in one place, going to the opposite place. Just making sure that we evenly tighten everything here. Now those are all pretty much snugged. I'm going to show you how to set the torque wrench and get these down to torque spec. So the bolts that we're going to be working with here are number 57, which is this one, and then number 68. So you're going to have two different numbers because remember, they're two different length bolts here. So I've got this highlighted, so they're 11 Newton meters. So that's what we're going to set our torque wrench to. I also have over here this this torque spec diagram. You can find all this stuff on Comet's website. However, they don't have, for whatever reason, on their inlet and discharge manifold plastics what the torque specs are, so that's where I came up with the 11 Newton meters, is just by looking at this parts diagram. Fortunately, they had this here. So again, 11 Newton meters is what we're going to set our torque wrench to. So I switched that over to Newton meters. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to set this at 8 Newton meters just to get everything into a good setting without just immediately going to tight. The reason being is, as you can see, the holders for this are going to be plastic compared to the AR45 over here. A lot of these holders are plastic here, but some of them are aluminum. Those aluminum threads are the ones you have to worry about typically. So with that in mind, this just gives us some sort of confidence that it's not gonna, like, say one needs to be set a little bit more or you don't get one perfectly set, you got a little bit of leeway for you to tell if something's wrong before completely messing it up. So same thing, we'll start on one side. So that's what you're waiting to hear for on your torque wrench. We're gonna do that to all these bolts to 8, and then I'll follow back up when we go to do the 11. We've got this torque to 8 Newton meters. Now we're gonna bump it up to 11 Newton meters. We're just gonna double check our measurement. Does not hurt to be safe, especially on this. So this is an expensive part. You just wanna make sure that you've got all your stuff in order, so it makes it easy. On this one specifically, I'm gonna make sure to go in a cross pattern. So now we have all the bolts torqued back on this collector. So now we need to do the unloader or the bypass here with these two Allen heads, just like disassembly. You do want to keep in mind, you need to hand tighten these in first. All right, we've got our torque wrench set back to 11 Newton meters. We are going to set this also to 11 Newton meters. Okay, now that that is set, we're going to clear our workspace. Now we can reconnect our hoses. So we're going to do our inlet down here. That's all good. Now we're going to take our bypass loop, and then you've got your outlet that goes to the reel. That stuff is all tight. So now we can water test this, check for leaks, and then we'll go from there. Okay, couple things before you start this up. You want to make sure all your hoses are connected, double check your bolts, your torque specs, everything. Make sure you have oil in this. You want to make sure that this is in pressure mode, not bypass. And then over here, depending on how your metering system's set up, you want to make sure your water valve is open, everything else is closed for the time being. And then this is the most important part. Do not put a trigger gun on it. Open it up so it can just flow out water, and you don't have to worry about immediately shocking the pump with a trigger being closed. So now that we made sure those couple things are done, the most important last step, throttle down. So that's our lowest throttle. We're gonna bump it up a little bit, choke on, fuel on. This might take a second to start up if that fuel's been off. So we will go ahead and fire this up. We're gonna let that run at idle speed. Might take a second for it to get out a lot of the air bubbles. So we're gonna kind of help it a little bit here. As you can see, it's flowing out water nicely down there. Skylar's telling me there's no leaks, so we'll just double check, take a look. I wiped off all the water down here. Everything looks pretty solid so far. As you can see, there's a little bit of grease. We'll wipe that off here in a few minutes. You can see we still got a little bit of air bubble here, so I am going to throttle this up a little bit. And it's probably coming from this valve, so I'm going to go ahead and crack this. And now that air bubble went away, so now this is a completely sealed system. This is our rinse valve on the back here, so there's water flowing through that. That was not just bleach.